2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
It's 7:38. Good morning to you. Should we have a look at the front pages this morning? Let's start with the Sunday Express. It says HS2 could be back on track. But that is because the West Midlands Mayor, Andy Street, and the Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, are teaming up with each other and apparently with private enterprise to fund it.
Very interesting.
That's the plan.
In the Telegraph, the government's cracking down on activists in the civil service. Diversity networks will be reviewed in an efficiency drive.
A third of children are in danger as they're not fully vaccinated against measles. That's in the Sunday Times this morning.
And video footage has emerged of post office chiefs enjoying a lavish company bash while they were fighting wrongly jailed sub-postmasters in court. The Mirror says the bosses, including Paula Venables, were filmed singing along to their guest star, Pixie Lott.
And the Sunday People says Prince Harry and Meghan have sent a message of support to the King and Princess of Wales over their health scares.
Though, as we pointed out, other papers say exactly the opposite.
In terms of the post office thing and the fact they had a party, I know that seems like it's a great headline, a great story. I don't really know if it's that relevant.
I don't know. If I'd been a jailed sub-postmaster, I'd be flipping furious about it.
But these corporate events happen, and the editor, it's while they were... The court cases have been going on for years. So you wouldn't therefore imagine within that 10, 15 longer period that there was no corporate events. Do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to be realistic about it.
I can't be. I feel so angry about that.
I think it comes across as really distasteful, and it's not a good headline, but great scheme.
Do you know Paula Venables could? I mean, different numbers pop up in different ways in the newspapers, but apparently her last year of earnings, she got a 400 grand bonus. 400 grand in 1 year. That's a bonus.
Well, nice work if you can get it. She was also up for running to be Bishop of London in 2019 or something like that. Anyway, let's have a look through the papers there with author and broadcaster Nicky Hodgson and the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater. Good morning to you both. Tom, this is in the Observer this morning. In 2016, after Brexit, there was a petition launched, wasn't there, for London to be declared an independent city-state so it could stay in the EU. Well, Sadiq Khan didn't try to do that. But he's doing the next best thing.
He is. He's... Sorry, excuse me. Pardon me. Yes, he is doing the next best thing. As you said, I remember that petition. I mean, anyone trying to suggest that Londoners are out of touch from the rest of the country, trying to declare independence from all the people who just voted the wrong way as far as they were concerned, was a pretty low point for that. But no, ahead of the mayoral elections in May, Sadiq Khan is making a play particularly to younger voters with this, suggesting that there should be some sort of agreement in place allowing young people from London and young people from the EU to be able to move back and forth more freely, to be able to work. It's not clear what this arrangement would look like. The idea has been floated before by other people that maybe 35 and under could be the cut-off. I don't know how you enforce...
So Brexit doesn't apply to them?
Apparently so, trying to opt out of Brexit.
I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it?
Also, I don't know under what power he could possibly strike up this deal, but I think it is very much a way to try to make the mayoral election about Brexit, given the fact that the Tory candidate, Susan Hall, is very pro-Brexit, wanting to make it along those kinds of lines. I don't know how much this is going to work. I mean, he's odds on to, be re-elected pretty comfortably anyway, but it seems like potentially the one thing that can always scupper things for Labour politicians in heavily Labour areas is, yes, the young people back you overwhelmingly, but will they actually show up? Yeah. So maybe this kind of retail offer of, here's a clear-cut thing that I'm going to give you potentially, is how he's looking to win them over. But I just don't even see how this would work.
Could you do it through sort of a city twinning programme?
I thought that, yeah. I thought that, Anne.
I don't know.
Twin London with another city that agrees that there will be, under the twinning, I don't know, are there any laws governing twinnings? But under those sort of arrangements...
You'd have to twin it with all of Europe.
But he could do individual deals, couldn't he? You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I don't know
How long would that take?
Well, yeah, exactly. But he could do it with some key cities. That would be a good way of doing it. I mean, I think about this all the time because I was a Remainer, but, you know, this is rubbish, what he's doing. I think it's a load of rubbish. I don't think he can keep the promise for a start. Don't promise young people stuff you won't deliver because they never forget. You know, think about what happened with university fees and Nick Clegg back in the day, you know? So don't start out with a lie. It's just a very, very silly way of doing it. I mean, but... You know, I've got Irish heritage. I'm trying to get an Irish passport for my daughter at the minute. Just
yes,
to give
I'm
her that,
applying for mine too.
Just try and give her that freedom if she wants to work in Europe when the time comes. But, yeah, I don't see this working at all.
No, it's absolute crackers.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, for instance, my generation of children, my children's generation, would be really interested, really fascinated by this.
But in terms of this, then, so young people would be... It's got to be two-way, so those young people from Europe could come to London. Well, they're not going to stay in London, are they? If they're in the UK, they're going to go everywhere.
Come and work
so
it's
effectively free movement for any European under 35 to the UK.
The M25. It starts to get a little bit sinister. And it is one of those things where I know that Brexit, particularly for young people, is a bit of a totemic issue. But I do think this also reveals the sorts of Londoners that Sadiq Khan mainly appeals to, which is young people, yes, but what kind of young people? Students and so on. And also the kind of upper middle classes. The last election, even though he obviously was returned quite handily, it's among kind of working-class Londoners of all different backgrounds. People aren't as enthusiastic about them because I think your average cab driver in Tower Hamlets is not waking up every day furious about the Vote Leave campaign.
No.
It's not the case.
And again,
They're furious about you, Les.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those kinds of issues, definitely.
Yeah. OK, Nikki, measles, should we, in the Sunday Times, and we talked about this over the last couple of days as well, but the fact that these diseases, which we thought were sort of pretty much long gone or at least well covered, are making a resurgence.
Yes, but the reason they're making a resurgence is because people are not vaccinating their children. This terrifies me, this kind of story, especially with a little baby who actually, if she was to get measles right now, could be very, very poorly indeed, you know, she's under 1. This is saying that actually about 25% of under 16s are not vaccinated. It requires 2 doses of the MMR vaccine to work, and there's just a big problem. And it's linked, obviously, to COVID, vaccine scepticism, but there are more issues than that, and there are issues that this report doesn't talk about. One of them is about certain communities that we don't reach and that we don't know how to talk to when it comes to immunising their children. There's this weird kind of, you know, slightly bonkers growth in holistic healthcare, thinking that everything that's medical is bad for you, so therefore I won't, you know, look after my child. But again, it's about responsibility towards others because, you know, OK, maybe you don't worry about your 11-year-old getting measles, but if they pass it on to, you know, a whole swathe of other children, then that's a big issue. And
but actually you should do, because we've forgotten, haven't we, over the years, how horrible measles is.
It can kill people. It can kill children.
It is a killer, and it's also, it makes you very ill. And you're off school for months.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just so terrible. You know, it's happening in particular. There's been a problem in London for a long time. Now it's in Birmingham. Now it's in the West Midlands. Of course, that's what happens. These things spread. But we've got to get better at telling parents that they have to do this. It's good for them.
How do we get this across to, presumably, sort of some ethnic minority groups who... What, is it just not in the culture? Or?
Well, I think it's more sometimes to do with the relationship between an ethnic minority and medical authorities. For example, the relationship that some black people have with how they've been treated by medicine and doctors in the past. So that kind of like grows in. And then there are just communities that are difficult to reach, you know. If there are people that don't speak good English, it's like, what are you doing? Get somebody who's trusted in that community to go and do the work. It's just so poor.
And I think be quite open about how you discuss these issues, because I think one thing that we really ran into with COVID was the fact that you had a tendency to try and shut down any of that discussion. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had my fair share of run-ins with those kind of anti-vax conspiracy theorists, they're lunatics. But at the same time, there was a lot of people in the middle who were just reading things they might have seen on the internet, seeing things they might have seen in the media, but also seeing a kind of response from officialdom, which was very, no, this is just the truth, be quiet, do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that gets you any further either.
And you need open forums where people can ask any kind of question, you know, however, you know, worried they are that it might be stupid. Let people ask all the questions and then they'll feel informed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely, you can't just demand people do it and expect them to behave.
No, I think that's what people most resented about the COVID vaccine. OK, let's look, Tom, at Nicola Sturgeon and her WhatsApp messages.
Yes, or where are they? It's the question here. So this was a big scandal coming out of the COVID inquiry this week, which is Nicola Sturgeon, as well as her former deputy, John Swinney, have basically deleted all of their WhatsApps.
John's done it as well, hasn't
he? Yeah, he actually had a mechanism in place, or his settings in place, that just automatically deleted them. And this is the thing about the SNP, not just under Nicola Sturgeon, but for some time now, which is that they have kind of ruled unchallenged for so long that these kinds of practices have been in place that only now they're really being held to account to because of the fact Nicola Sturgeon is no longer in power, because of the fact that, you know, their star is kind of falling in so many different respects. And it's a reminder as well that during the whole COVID story, Scotland were often kind of held up as being so much more effective, better, they were on the front foot. But not only were they, their COVID deaths were pretty much on a par with England, despite the fact that they had much more proactive measures in some areas.
It was higher, weren't they?
In certain places, definitely. And this is one of the things where I think that the kind of narrative that was set over the past couple of years is starting to come undone. And also just the idea of Nicola Sturgeon as a kind of morally unassailable figure.
She was for a while, wasn't she?
Yes. But it's just
really
so basic. And it's interesting, isn't it, that we've got that policy coming now into Parliament where they won't be allowed to delete messages. You will have to have stuff retained. I mean, the thing is, I know things like WhatsApp are encrypted, but there's always a record somewhere.
Yes.
So if you're ever doing a criminal investigation, then those companies can be asked to provide that anyway. So nothing's ever really deleted.
And also, if you've got a big WhatsApp group, someone is storing those messages.
Someone is screenshotting
as
away.
Matt Hancock found out.
Absolutely.
Although, don't you think it's just that now we're looking back and we're asking them to reveal their WhatsApp messages, which at the time they believed were private.
Sure.
And I'm not sure. Now it would be different. You say to all politicians, whatever you say, at some point may be subject to analysis and scrutiny. But is it fair to look through her WhatsApp messages?
I mean, I do think it is fair because actually I think as a politician you should presume anything you say to somebody could go on the public record. Always presume that somebody else will be privy to your information. As a journalist, you have to work like that. Anyway, I mean, I just think it's...
And I do recognise that ministers have to have space in private to discuss things. You need to be able to float ideas. You need to be able to... It might not be the thing you're actually going to do, but you need to be able to have that sort of discussion. I think the big problem that came out with the pandemic is people using WhatsApp as a kind of official mode of communication. Less so in Scotland, but certainly more so in Westminster. This is where, you know, the chief medical advisor, the chief scientific officer, all of these people were actually communicating on a play-by-play basis, and that's a terrible way to do
and when your words
and therefore it does become public,
yes,
you know.
Exactly.
Was she critical? Was she critical of Boris Johnson over his WhatsApp messages not being fully available?
I'm trying to think if that would have lined up with her, you know, being sort of out of office and keeping strum whilst that investigation was going on. I'm not entirely sure, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem right, does it? HMRC getting a bit of a kicking in The Guardian.
Well, I mean, I know it sounds like a boring story. Yeah, it's The Observer. It sounds a very boring story, but it's not, and I'll tell you why. So, HMRC, 6 years ago, introduced this new law called the Criminal Finances Act, and it was designed to stop employees of certain businesses being involved in tax evasion.
Right.
And it's very serious stuff, you know. We talk all the time about we've got, you know, where's the money coming from, etc. We know tax evasion is a real problem. Tax avoidance is a different thing, obviously not illegal. But nobody has been prosecuted under this act in 6 years.
Maybe nobody's done anything wrong.
Well, I don't think it's that simple, because with some other laws, there have been prosecutions. Margaret Hodge, the MP, has come out and said, you know, you're treating the law like a paper tiger. And the reason this gets me as well is think about that discussion we've had recently about getting people using Depop or eBay selling clothes to, you know, register, getting HMRC to get the companies to watch them, like how much money they're making. Don't go after the little people, go after these people. This is genuine criminal activity. And
it's easier to go after the little people, isn't it?
Always.
That's what we found with the post office. HMRC doesn't use Horizon or anything else made by Fujitsu.
No, not that we know of. No. But, I mean, it's not sending any message out that, you know, you have to do the right thing.
No. Well, if evasion is illegal.
Yes.
So
evasion is, yes.
Needs to be sorted out. Gender-neutral pets in the Sun on Sunday.
Gender-neutral pets?
Yes.
What's that? Mind you, can I just say, I always used to get very annoyed that there was always, back in the day, I don't know if it's any different now, but anything for dogs was always for him, and anything for cats was always for her.
Yes.
And that always used, I wrote to a pet company once and complained about that.
Good Lord.
Because it was like, I have a cat and it is not a she. So what's all this about?
Yeah.
Or it might be a they, which is where the
well,
there you
comes
go.
in. So,
well,
yeah.
he sort of is a they. Get my drift?
So this is a funny story. So Urban Paws, which is a talent agency based in Merseyside.
PAWS.
Yes, exactly. They are. They've bemused some pet owners because when people come forward and say, I've got this very attractive cat, I would like them to do some modelling or whatever, they've been presented with a form which asks what their gender identity is, so whether they're male, female,
Gender
neutral,
identity?
Yeah.
or non-binary, which has left a lot of people... Apparently it was a part of a drive on the part of this talent agency. They wanted to look inclusive of gender non-conforming dogs and cats, I suppose, and so have got a little bit ahead of themselves, a little bit over the top, and are presenting these pet owners with these forms. But as Nikki was telling me, some pet owners seem to talk about their animals.
This is so fascinating. So I've discovered with my male sausage dog that when I take him out for a walk...
Go in there.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's still got his bits because I want to breed him, so...
right.
To me, he's very obviously male. Anyway, if I take him for a walk and I see somebody under 25 and they ask about it, they say, what are they called to him, always, which I find really fascinating. Look, I'm very pro-gender diversity and all the stuff of it around humans and, doing more research and learning about how gender works. But pets, really? And this is just ridiculous.
I know, it's totally ridiculous because they don't identify as anything.
Well, I should have to go home and ask my little doggy how she feels, how she self-identifies.
Yes.
So she'd have a view. She has a view on most things.
Has she been spayed?
She has, yes.
Well, there
she's
you
a
go.
rescue, so you do
Yeah,
get
there
a
you go.
choice.
No, I wonder what she... how very odd. Lovely, thank you both very much indeed. I must feel sorry for Timmy now. Sorry, Timmy. Let's see what the weather's going to do for you today. Here's Craig.